Did anyone expect this moment to come so soon? Fans had been eagerly waiting, speculating, and hoping for a reunion that seemed like a distant dream. But fate had something extraordinary in store. When Kim Taehyung, widely known as V of BTS, stepped onto the military camp grounds, his heart pounded with anticipation. He was about to meet someone who had been on his mind constantly, someone he had deeply missed. Jungkook, who had been recovering after his hospital stay, was finally back, and Taehyung could not contain his emotions any longer. For weeks, fans had been concerned about Jungkook's health. His sudden hospitalization had sent waves of worry through the BTS fandom army. Although details were scarce, it was clear that his condition had been serious enough to require rest and treatment. When news broke that he was finally discharged, relief flooded social media. But amidst all the celebrations, one person remained restless: Taehyung. He longed to see Jungkook, to check on him personally, to reassure himself that his younger brother was truly okay. As Taehyung approached the camp, memories of their time together as bandmates and brothers flashed through his mind. The laughter, the pranks, the late-night talks. Everything felt so vivid yet so far away. He had spent years standing beside Jungkook, witnessing his growth from a shy teenager into the global superstar, known as the Golden Magne. But today there were no stage lights, no screaming fans. Just two men who had shared years of friendship, about to reunite in the most unexpected setting. The air was crisp, and the scent of pine trees surrounded the military base. Taehyung took a deep breath, his heart racing. Would Jungkook be the same? Would he have lost weight? Would he still have that spark in his eyes? The uncertainty gnawed at him. And then, as if on cue, a familiar figure stepped out of the barracks. Taehyung froze. For a second he couldn't move. The sight of Jungkook standing there in his military uniform, looking both strong and slightly weary, sent a wave of emotions crashing over him. He had prepared himself for this moment, yet nothing could have readied him for the overwhelming rush of feelings that surged through his chest. Jungkook's eyes widened as he saw Taehyung standing just a few feet away. There was a brief moment of silence, an unspoken acknowledgement of everything they had been through. Then, as if breaking free from invisible chains, Taehyung took a step forward, his arms outstretched. "Jungkook, ah," he whispered, his voice trembling. Before Jungkook could react, Taehyung pulled him into a tight embrace. For a split second, Jungkook stiffened in surprise. But then, as if realizing just how much he had missed this warmth, he melted into the hug. He could feel Taehyung's heartbeat, could hear his unsteady breathing. And in that moment, everything else faded away. "You idiot," Taehyung mumbled, his voice thick with emotion. "Why didn't you tell me sooner that you were okay?" Jungkook chuckled softly, though there was a hint of emotion in his voice. "I didn't want you to worry." Taehyung pulled back slightly, his hand still gripping Jungkook's shoulders. "Worry? You think I wouldn't worry? Do you even know how hard it was to not be there when you were in the hospital?" His voice cracked, revealing just how much he had been holding in. Jungkook lowered his gaze, guilt flashing across his face. "I know, Hyung. I'm sorry." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The weight of everything they had been through, the separation, the worry, the longing, hung heavy in the air. But then Jungkook let out a small, almost sheepish laugh. "You look different," he said, trying to lighten the mood. "More serious. Military life suits you." Taehyung rolled his eyes. "And you look exactly the same, just with a little more muscle. I swear they're feeding you well in here." Jungkook grinned, and just like that, the tension melted away. They fell into easy conversation, teasing each other, catching up on everything they had missed. Taehyung listened intently as Jungkook spoke about his recovery, the boredom of being stuck in bed, the endless medical checkups. Jungkook, in turn, listened as Taehyung described military life, the training, the strict schedules, the camaraderie among soldiers. But beneath their laughter, there was something deeper, an unspoken promise. No matter where life took them, no matter how long they were apart, their bond would remain unbreakable. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the camp, Taehyung knew one thing for certain. This reunion was just the beginning. And no matter how much time passed, no matter how far they were from the stage, they would always find their way back to each other as the golden hues of the sunset bathed the military camp in a warm glow. Taehyung and Jungkook sat side by side on a wooden bench, their conversation drifting between laughter and quiet reflections. The moment felt surreal. Two brothers, once inseparable on world tours, now reunited under vastly different circumstances. But despite the uniforms and the rigid schedules, there was an undeniable comfort in being together again. Jungkook sighed, tilting his head back to gaze at the sky. You know, Hyung, I really missed you. Taehyung smiled, though there was a lingering sadness in his eyes. You have no idea how much I missed you too. For weeks, Taehyung had spent nights staring at his phone, resisting the urge to send messages he wasn't sure Jungkook would even be able to read. The hospital had restricted visitors, and although their team had reassured him that Jungkook was recovering well, it wasn't the same as hearing it from him directly. And now, sitting here beside him, Taehyung realized just how much he had longed for this moment. Jungkook turned to face him, studying his features. You look like you haven't been sleeping well. Taehyung let out a dry chuckle. Says the one who just got out of the hospital. I mean it, Jungkook pressed, his expression softening. You were worried about me, weren't you? Taehyung didn't respond right away. Instead, he exhaled a slow breath, his gaze fixed on the horizon. Of course I was. When I heard you were in the hospital, I felt so useless. I couldn't be there, couldn't see you. It drove me crazy, Jungkook. I kept thinking about all the things I should have said before we enlisted. All the times I took for granted, thinking we'd always have more time. Jungkook swallowed hard, sensing the raw emotions behind Taehyung's words. He reached out, placing a reassuring hand on his Hyung's knee. Hyung, you don't have to carry that burden alone. I'm okay now. And you're here. That's all that matters. Taehyung finally met his gaze, his lips curving into a small but genuine smile. You always know what to say, don't you? Jungkook grinned, his dimple making an appearance. Of course. I learned from the best. Their laughter echoed through the quiet evening air, a sound that felt both nostalgic and healing. But beneath their light-hearted exchange, there was an understanding, an acknowledgement of the challenges they had faced apart, and the silent promise to always be there for each other. No matter what. As the sky darkened and the cool night breeze swept through the camp, Taehyung hesitated before speaking again. Do you ever get scared? Jungkook blinked, caught off guard by the sudden shift in tone. Scared of what? Of what comes next, Taehyung admitted. The future. The uncertainty. The thought of us finishing our service and coming back to a world that might not be the same anymore. Jungkook took a moment to think before answering. Yeah, sometimes. He glanced down at his hands, tracing invisible patterns on his palm. When I was in the hospital, I had a lot of time to think. And for the first time in years, I realized how much we've been running. From one thing to the next, albums, concerts, awards, never really stopping to breathe. And now that we're forced to take a break, it's weird. Taehyung nodded, understanding all too well. It feels like we're standing still while the world keeps moving. But maybe that's not a bad thing, Jungkook added thoughtfully. Maybe this is our chance to reset, to figure out who we are outside of BTS. Taehyung studied Jungkook's face, noting the wisdom in his words. He had always admired Jungkook's ability to see things from a perspective others often overlooked. So, what do you want to do when we get out?